It was a cold, mist-covered evening when Ayan, a documentary filmmaker, received a mysterious email. The subject simply read, "The ritual you shouldn't remember." Attached was an old photograph of an abandoned church buried deep within the forests of Murray. The structure looked ancient, almost swallowed by vines and time. A note scribbled at the bottom read, "They never left. They still wait beneath the altar." Intrigued and slightly unnerved, Ayan gathered his camera crew, Myra, a sound engineer, and Danish, his oldest friend Dan, set out to uncover the story behind the forgotten church. After hours of driving through winding roads and fog-covered hills, they finally reached a broken iron gate, rusted and hanging by one hinge. Beyond it lay the church, cloaked in silence and shadow. The trio stepped out into the eerie quiet, the crunch of leaves under their boots the only sound. The church loomed ahead like a sleeping monster. Ivy crawled across its cracked stone walls, and the stained glass windows were either shattered or blackened. Ayan felt an unexplainable chill as they crossed the threshold, like something ancient had just noticed them. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Wooden pews lay in disarray, and torn hymn books littered the floor. At the far end, the altar stood covered in symbols neither of them recognized, carved into the stone like scars. Myra, while checking the sound levels, frowned. "There's a low frequency, like a hum," she whispered. "But it's not coming from our equipment." Danish laughed it off, but Ayan's camera picked up something odd just for a split second. The altar seemed to glow faintly red before returning to normal. They exchanged uneasy glances. Maybe it was just interference. Or maybe not. That night, they decided to camp inside the church to get night footage. As darkness settled in, the wind picked up, howling through the broken windows like a mournful choir. Myra suddenly sat upright. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Faint whispers like chanting seemed to echo from below the floor. Danish dismissed it as wind tricks, but Ayan noticed the whispers matched the rhythm of the markings on the altar. As the hours passed, the crew grew more paranoid. Their cameras started glitching. Audio crackled with static, and one by one, the candles they had lit were snuffed out, though there was no breeze. Unable to sleep, Ayan wandered to the altar and touched one of the carvings. Suddenly, he felt something shift beneath his handstone moved. A panel behind the altar slowly creaked open, revealing a narrow spiral staircase descending into darkness. He called the others, and despite their fear, they decided to explore it. As they stepped into the darkness, the air grew colder, thicker, almost alive. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, each breath a visible puff in the gloom. The whispers grew louder, chanting, in a language none of them could understand. At the bottom of the staircase, they found a small chamber lit by the dim glow of fungus on the walls. In the center was a circle of bones, blackened candles, and a rusted dagger stuck into the floor. Ayan stepped closer and picked up a tattered page from an old book beside the circle. It was written in Latin. Myra tried to translate. "The forgotten shall rise, when the blood of the curious touches the blade." As they read those words aloud, a cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing their lantern. In the pitch black, a guttural voice whispered just behind Ayan's ear, "You have remembered what was meant to be forgotten." The voice behind Ayan sent a chill down his spine. He spun around, heart pounding, but saw nothing, only darkness, and the faint outline of his friends, frozen in fear. "Who's there?" Danish shouted, his voice echoing off the damp stone walls. But there was no answer, just the return of that low, whispering chant, growing louder, almost as if it was seeping from the very walls. Myra tried to light the lantern again, her hands trembling, but the flame refused to catch, as if the air itself had turned against them. Then suddenly, the dagger in the center of the bone circle began to tremble, its rust flaking off like dry blood. As they watched in horror, the dagger lifted slightly off the ground and then slammed back down, cracking the floor beneath it. A red glow oozed out of the fracture like molten lava. The circle of bones began to vibrate, and a foul stench like burning flesh and rotting wood filled the chamber. Myra clutched her chest. "We have to leave. Now," she screamed. But as they turned to climb back up, the stone staircase behind them had sealed shut. Panic spread like wildfire. Trapped and terrified, the three friends backed into a corner, unable to make sense of the ancient evil they had just awakened. Desperate for a way out, Ayan fumbled through his bag and pulled out his phone, only to find the screen glitching, flashing symbols that looked eerily like the carvings on the altar above. Suddenly, from the red-lit crack in the floor, a hand emerged, blackened, clawed, and skeletal, covered in ancient rings and soaked in dried blood. It gripped the dagger tightly and began pulling itself out. The friends watched in frozen terror as a full figure started Razinga humanoid shape wrapped in tattered robes, with a face veiled in ash and decay. Its hollow eyes glowed dimly, as it spoke a single word in a voice that echoed like 1,000 whispers. The ritual begins anew. In that moment, something shifted within the minds of all three. It was like they could feel the entity's hunger not for food, but for remembrance. It had been trapped in this chamber for centuries, its power bound by the forgotten ritual that sealed it. And now that they had read the incantation and bled curiosity into its domain, it had awoken. The veiled creature turned its head slowly toward Ayan and pointed a bony finger. His nose began to bleed instantly. "He is the key," it hissed. "He will finish what the others failed to complete." As the creature stepped forward, the red glow flared, and the walls began to pulse like veins alive. Watching, waiting. The chamber now pulsed like a beating heart, its stone walls alive with veins of red light. The veiled creature moved closer to Ayan, each step leaving behind a trail of black ash. Myra grabbed a broken piece of wood and swung it wildly, but it passed straight through the entity, as if it were made of smoke and shadow. Danish pulled Ayan back, shouting his name, but Ayan seemed distant and transated as if the creature's words were unlocking something deep within him. A sudden vision hit him, flashes of monks, centuries ago, performing the same ritual, sealing away this horror with a sacrifice. Ayan saw one monk who looked just like him, blood pouring down his arms, whispering Latin verses before collapsing. Myra, realizing Ayan was the chosen vessel, screamed at him to fight it. "You don't have to be part of this." But Ayan stepped forward, his voice calm but hollow. "It's in my blood. I was meant to finish this." The creature extended the dagger toward him, and Ayan, trembling, took it. At that moment, the chamber shook violently, rocks fell from the ceiling, and a deep roar echoed from the depths below. Danish lunged at Ayan, trying to stop him, but was flung across the room by an unseen force. Myra cried out, tears streaming down her face as she begged him to stop. But Ayan had already stepped into the center of the bone circle, the ritual now continuing through him. With a single motion, Ayan cut his palm and let the blood fall onto the dagger. The creature raised its hands, chanting in that same ancient tongue. The floor split wide open, revealing a swirling abyss of red light and shadow. Ayan screamed, not in pain, but in defiance. "You are meant to stay forgotten." He gripped the dagger and plunged it into the ground, disrupting the circle. The creature shrieked, its form unraveling like smoke in wind. The chamber began collapsing. Danish pulled Myra up, and together they rushed toward a small gap opening in the wall, an emergency exit they hadn't noticed before. They emerged outside just as the church behind them caved in, swallowed by the earth itself. Silence returned to the forest, broken only by their ragged breaths. Myra turned to look back, tears in her eyes. "Ayan," Danish put a hand on her shoulder. "He ended it. Whatever that thing was, it's gone now." But as they walked away, the camera Ayan had placed on the altar still recording lay, buried under rubble. Its red light blinked, once, then twice, then turned solid. Deep beneath the earth, in forgotten darkness, a whisper stirred once more. Only delayed, never destroyed.